When we first talked, like, what is it that what are you really passionate about?
I'm very passionate about sexology and sex psychology. The understanding and having better sex education overall is super important to me. And I think a lot of the issues that we were talking about previously, like what was stated about frat boys being an issue, would not be if we had better sex education.
You meaning that, by the way, hey, that's not to disparage frat boys, okay? Frat guys. We'll say frat guys. He did say frat boys.
That's what I was
I know, I got you. All right. So, and it wouldn't happen because why?
I think it's not that it wouldn't happen. Unfortunately, it's more that more people would be educated on what is safe and consensual sex, and then they can recognize whether or not they want to partake. Like having a drop of alcohol in your system makes it so you technically cannot consent. But for a lot of people, they can't go talk to a potential partner without having some liquid courage.
Yeah.
So things like that would be informed ahead of time, and there wouldn't be any gray area of who was and wasn't consenting.
And the kinds of things that we would talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about any of this stuff.
No, not really.
So so I want to go back to the yesterday's conversation. What struck you about that conversation?
I was on the camera, so I didn't hear all of it, but I thought it was really interesting because, and even today's conversation, because if it's just kind of what each person wants to do. Like all the ladies up here that were wearing hijabs, if they want to wear that, that's completely them. And like while it definitely is a social construct and like a expectation with being Muslim, it's if they choose to wear it, they are doing it for themselves in a sense.
So do you, as someone who is really thinking about these issues a lot, how do you think? Hang on, can you put that last slide up? How do you think about this? Right? Remember? Did you see this slide the other day? It's so we're this idea of policing women's bodies. Like men are do women come up with this stuff?
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. Right? So we have men that, for whatever reason, we're policing your bodies.
Right.
Because of something in us. And so how is that for you? Like, do you have any commentary on that?
I have a lot of commentary on that. I don't agree with it. I think if someone cannot handle their own urges, or if they're not regulated or taught to act a certain way, that they should then expect someone else to compensate for them. That's not my responsibility. Because I wear what I want and I'm comfortable. You're upset. Not my problem.
So like this idea of, yeah. So this idea of the underside curve, like that's, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah, everybody has a different body and everybody's okay. So for you to say because someone has a bigger butt or a bigger bust, that they're
or we don't want to see any of it at all.
that they're inappropriate. Like I've had personal experiences where people try to police my body, especially when I was in middle school and like growing up. And it's like I am changing. I did not change on purpose. I did not ask for the changes that I got. I simply am living with them and trying to like find something that fits my body now and makes me comfortable as far as clothing. So for someone else to come and say that I'm being promiscuous or inappropriate is ridiculous, especially an adult who has been through that experience.
Yeah, and what is, like what, right, because what is appropriate, right?
Right.
Do you have any ideas of what's appropriate?
I think, that's kind of the gray space, right? Like being appropriate for right now, like I'm not wearing a bra, and many people would think that's super inappropriate, but it's what makes me comfortable. And I think it's hard to say because you could say, well, if it's not hurting anybody, but to some people who are more conservative or feel that they have a right to police my body or anybody else's, I'm sure they would say like, oh, it's hurting me in some form because perhaps it's unholy or unconservative and therefore like tempting them.
Well, but if you're at a place like, let's just talk about Penn State for a second.
Okay.
This is like the bastion of secular hedonism here, right? So like, then you wouldn't be at Penn State. Like, don't come here. Go to some like really conservative place.
Right.
Or just don't be around women or don't be around. So I often have this idea about breastfeeding, for example, that like breasts are made for basically kind of one thing. They're not made for the male gaze.
They're not sexual inherently. They're meant to feed children.
So whenever I'm anywhere and a woman is breastfeeding, I'm just like, awesome, man. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
agree.
And then whenever I see anybody have a problem with that, I just like, I don't possibly understand. And my mom was kind of a badass, and I was her last child, and she just the story is she was just anywhere with me. She didn't care. She didn't care what people thought, and she definitely didn't care what men thought. Yeah. And so,
I mean, the thought that you're going to keep someone from feeding their offspring or their child is really weird.
Or no, I'm going to say, hey, listen, what you need to do is, you need to breastfeed? Well, we have a room over here for you.
Yeah,
and,
a little dungeon.
Yeah, you can go in there and you can breastfeed, and then when you're done, come out,
That's odd.
It's very odd, isn't it? Like the one thing, yet it's perfectly fine for me to give you, a milkshake or a canister of milk that comes from a cow that's produced for baby cows. Like, we're the only mammal that drinks the milk of another mammal. But that's perfectly normal. You can drink this, but your baby can't breastfeed in any place other than a darkened room somewhere out of sight of everybody else. Isn't it? It's kind of bizarre, right? That you drink milk from a...
Absolutely.
Could you ever imagine yourself like getting down on a cow like this with the udder and like... Which I have done that, by. Or how about drinking the milk? But like somehow it's okay to drink the milk of a cow, but how about drink the milk of a dog? It's harder to get the milk of a dog, but
Yeah.
so you sound like you're really. How about, let me ask you this. You sound really reasonable. Like, there's nothing you've said that I can imagine anybody would be bothered with, right? It's like, okay. What do you think that people struggle with the most on the kinds of stuff that we're talking about?
In regards to their beliefs, you mean?
Yeah, like what's so hard about this conversation? Because it should be really, because I'm with you, that if we educated people, you watched the lecture that Lori and I did, right? If we educated people would just be just much more at ease. Like, what's the struggle?
I think it's habit for the most part. A lot of people, you grow up in your house and you're taught a certain way, and to go away from that is really hard, especially when it seems like the majority agrees with that way, which at this point in time it does. And I think also, especially when it comes to sex education, people are very nervous whenever I talk to people about it, and like saying like, oh, like we need to start younger, we need to talk to people and really get them before puberty so that when these changes occur, because it's not just about actually having sex, it's also about what your body goes through, just recognizing your genitalia. It can start, there's sex across the lifespan, and there's actually a class on that, it's really cool. People fear for the children. That's like what everybody says. It's like, oh, you can't be telling little kids, I don't want my son coming home and telling me about anal sex or a clit, like,
or just sex.
Yeah, sex in general. It's so uncomfortable, and I have to ask them, like, if you had sex education and it was thorough and it talked about everything from being queer, non-binary, trans, like, if kind of you said it in your lecture, that like education that we have now is like a pair of pants and it doesn't really fit everyone.
Yeah.
But if we
Yeah.
made that pair of pants into a skirt and it fit everyone, even people who didn't have legs, you know, would they be so uncomfortable to answer those questions that their kids ask them, or just start younger and, you know, have a more open mindset?
The answer is we would. Things would be completely different. But this is part of one of the reasons I teach this class, is to have these kinds, the conversations that kind of force us out into our discomfort zone. And if we get to the discomfort zone, then we can start to think for ourselves, you know.
Absolutely. I think right now, especially our system, it's kind of taught in a way to test or to educate for the next test as opposed to educate for mastering something.
Yeah.
And when you master something, it means you understand it from every angle and that you're able to then, if something goes wrong that you didn't expect, make up for that.
Yeah.
And so to have like a masterful sex education, you would learn about every way that you can have sex. And like, just a fun fact for everyone to know, the safest form of sex is masturbation. And a lot of people don't know that because it's not considered sex because it's not with two people. And it's like, it's so safe because there's no chance of an STD or an STI, and if you're cleaning and proper, you know. And there's no chance of abuse. But nobody knows that because it's sinful or inappropriate or whatever term you want to say. So it's like, if you knew about that, you wouldn't be worried that your penis is going to fall off because you want to wank.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say it like that, but that's
Sorry.
all right. No, that's all right. No, and I think so for you, what I think about are a lot of cultures and a lot of places where people don't have an opportunity till they come together and they have to figure it out for themselves, which is really pretty, kind of.
If you don't get the
unsettling.
blueprint, how are you supposed to do it right?
Yeah, how are you supposed to do it? Well, that's what this is all about, right? And so next week we go in a very different direction and we talk about some other things. But this is all good. Hey, could you imagine wearing a hijab, by the way? Could you
I want to try one. I think they look beautiful, and especially when people like do it to frame their face.
Yeah.
I love it. I see so many hijabis.
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 Hey, some hijabi in here. Bring a hijab someday. So
I would definitely
so
try.
Dela when you're on the camera, you can have a hijab on and just see what it's like to be
I don't
there.
know how I'd fit my hair, but I would try.
No. You can hook her up, right? She's got you.
That'd
She's
be
gonna hook you
awesome.
up. Next class. All right, man. Hey, thanks. Yeah.